And it's weird because like I do feel this weird ambivalence for him as a person with like all the Scientology stuff, but I also it's hard to hate somebody that is just so determined to be something great and then they do it. Like there is something about determination and discipline that is so attractive that you just can't help but be in awe of like this guy just drove a freaking motorcycle.
Now you
off
know
a cliff.
We're rolling in the minivan. We're rolling in the minivan. Rolling in the minivan. We're rolling in
Welcome
the
back,
minivan.
Minivan Movie Club.
Rolling
It is
in
I, your host, Nick Wiggum, with my fellow host,
Backwards Hat Brett.
Backwards Hat Brett.
That's my new nickname, Backwards Hat Brett.
That's better than your college nickname.
Well, we're not going to talk about that. Those days are behind us. But I always have a backwards hat on, and I had a friend recently be like, you always have your hat backwards? Like, are you bald? And I was like, no, I'm not bald.
That's why I got some of your hair poofed out.
I got
You
plenty
actually
of
have
hair.
your hat on backwards so much that when Gibson puts a hat on backwards, he goes, "Look, I'm Brett." I was like, "All right, dude." Like he thinks like if he spikes his hair up in the front, we have my wife has a cousin. Her cousin's husband's name is Kyle, so he'll like have a messy hair in the front. He'll be like, "Daddy, I'm Kyle." I'm like, that is not really how it works, but I get what you're going for.
That's
bud.
funny. That's funny.
So we are here with a very, very exciting movie.
Oh, yeah.
The antithesis of a summer blockbuster, and that is the Mission Impossible franchise with Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning.
And it's worth noting this entire summer we've been talking all about at-home movie marathons that you can create at your house. Every single Mission Impossible movie is on Paramount Plus.
Yes.
You can go see them all, and it is just a rip-roaring good time to watch all these movies on one platform. And it's a reminder that you can go watch movies on the Mini for us if you go subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are doing a $25 giveaway to the people that subscribe to our YouTube channel. All you have to do is be in the first 100 subscribers, and we're going to do a drawing with those 100. We are almost there, so spots are filling up in this drawing. Once that 100th person subscribes, we're going to do a drawing, and who knows, maybe there'll be some other goodies and giveaways in that drawing as well, but that's only to the first 100 subscribers. So if you want to see a movie on the Mini, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel right now.
101, you do not make the cutoff to be a part of the mission.
Nope, not part of our mission. It's
Nope.
impossible.
So as Brett said, this movie is on Paramount Plus. Not this movie. All of the Mission Impossible movies besides the latest one, which is in theaters, are on Paramount Plus. Luckily for you, it's one of the rare franchises where it seems to just get better every single time, with the exception of Mission Impossible 2. Everyone kind of elevates it. The stunts are a little better. The action sequences are a little better. The connectedness, the jokes, everything is kind of takes that next step in a rare sense where we have our Fast and the Furious franchises. We have these movies where it just becomes so corny and it's almost a joke to go see the next one. This is not like that. You're getting a better movie every time that you go, and I think part of that is just the mysticalness around Tom Cruise, the unicorn that he is, of doing all of his own stunts at 56, 57 years old. It just provides an exciting time in the theater. Even we went last night. This is three weeks after the movie came out. It still had plenty of people in there. There was still a buzz. There was still some energy, and that's just exciting to see in a movie theater.
No, and we've done some awesome at-home movie marathons so far this summer.
Yep.
We've done Spider-Man. We've done Avatar. We've done John Wick, Back to the Future, all the Christopher Nolan movies. There are so many great movies out there, and rarely do they get better and better and better and better and better. So it feels like typically what happens is you watch the first one, it's a classic. The second one kind of doles off, and the third one or the fourth one, it's just like, all right, I get it. Get me with some nostalgia or some Easter eggs.
Yep.
This movie, this series feels like every single one raises the stakes, and I I hate to say, like, because I want to be a cinephile. I want to be somebody that is heady and smart and is able to get these movies. They're just good. They're just good. And I think it's one of the rare times, too, where watching this movie beforehand actually makes viewing the actual movie in theaters better. When we watch the Spider-Man movies, yes, it's fun, and you're going to get more Easter egg references, but it didn't really change the game. Whereas, like, watching Batman 89 before seeing The Flash, that made the movie better.
Yep.
This is a case where watching these movies sequentially and watching them really recently in comparison to Dead Reckoning makes viewing the movie better. And that excites me because knowing that part 2 is coming out, we'll get to do this all over again, in a year or two.
Get to hop right back in it. There's so many references to the first Mission Impossible, but there's just little things sprinkled through. The connection you have with these characters, especially if you just recently watched these movies, because for me and Brett, we rewatched them all about a week before we watched the movie, and I hadn't seen most of those with the exception of Fallout in probably almost 10 years. So it was an exciting way to rewatch it. Is there anything about the movie itself that just really stood out to you?
I mean, that's a loaded gun question. It's loaded. It's a solid. I think I told you this as we were walking out of the theater. It's almost 3 hours long, and Oppenheimer is 3 hours long.
Yep.
We learned our lesson with Avatar: The Way of Water. I am not going to complain about good movies being long. I'm only going to complain when it's a bad movie and it's too long, because I wish I would have seen Avatar: The Way of Water in theaters. I saw Oppenheimer in theaters. I saw this movie in theaters the way it was intended to be viewed, and it was better because of it. The sound was great. The visuals are great. The fact that it's practical, you're going to talk about this later, but the fact that it's real,
Yep.
it makes it better. Like, I feel like this in a way is more impressive than watching a Marvel movie, because this is a real person doing superhuman things, not a superhuman who's created through like computer-generated imaging. So I think that the biggest thing that I walked out of the theater thinking was, that's the most fun I've had watching a movie since something like
The last time I watched
Ragnarok.
a movie.
Like, it was so fun.
Yeah.
It did everything, and maybe the last time I felt this like excited about a movie, or like just keep going, don't end, was watching Interstellar, where he gets in the plane going to chase Dr. Brand and catch up. Like, I thought, like, just keep telling the story. I want more of this movie.
Dead Reckoning Part 2?
Let's keep going. Like, I was ready for them to just keep going. There's so many sequences that are so good. And I don't like being the person that just gets on a podcast and just goes like, oh, it's so good, it's so good, it's so good, and not give like specific examples. But truly, as a composition, all these individual pieces are working together in a way that Mission Impossible has always done, with a rotating cast of characters, a rotating story, while still using similar motifs and, plot points. But it still feels organic, fresh, and new. And I think that's a credit to the director, the writer, and to Tom Cruise.
Well, because with Mission Impossible, it follows kind of the same story beats. There's some sort of like MacGuffin thing that they're trying to chase after. It's the new thing that's going to wipe out the face of the earth, whatever it is. They've gone to AI, which is, everybody's gone to AI now. It's like the hot topic of things being scary. It's like, what is this AI going to do? A rogue AI. Which isn't a new theme, but even with that, they are so focused on what they do well, and they've done well for so long that like that villain itself doesn't really matter.
Yep.
Like okay, like this makes sense. Whatever it is, nuclear warheads, whatever they choose at that point.
I will say, by comparison to the other Mission Impossible movies, I felt like the emotional stakes of this movie started more dire than other films, and maybe that's just them ratcheting things up and just dialing it up a little bit more. But like the first time you see Tom Cruise, I was like, oh, he looks older. It's the first time I've seen him. I'm like, oh, yep, Father Time is coming.
Yep, catching up to him.
He's catching up, and I don't know if this is wishful thinking. there's so much that ties this movie to the first movie, which again I hadn't seen in years. I don't know if I'd ever really seen the whole thing other than it being like on
clips
TBS and
like
TNT when I was a
hanging
kid.
down in the room.
Seeing that movie, and then less than a week later seeing this in theaters, this feels like the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
Like part 1 and part 2, maybe this is the close of the Mission Impossible series. Now, Tom Cruise, as long as he's alive and capable of doing movies, he's going to do them. I do wonder, like, are we going to hear a news story in a few years, like 63-year-old Tom Cruise dies blasting himself into space?
Yeah.
For
deep diving
for
in,
this movie.
in Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning
so
2.
He's going to do movies as long as he can do movies. I have no doubt about that. But the emotional stakes of this villain, the characters, the way that they feel so isolated from so many other things, this feels like the end. This feels like it's it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think comfortably, I think we've kind of gotten there with the characters. We have an investment, especially after watching all of them back to back to back, because a lot of characters kind of bounce in and out.
Yep.
But you're starting to feel like maybe Ethan Hunt's slowing down a little bit. Tom Cruise is looking a little older. But even so, like the stunts that they have him do, everything still feels really believable. It's not like Liam Neeson level of like corny, like clothes, gun fu camera angles. It's like he's really out there. Like it looks like he's taking punches. He's really giving them. Palm kills it as the villain. I think,
fantastic.
Like she's
that
such a
closed
good like
alley
little
fight scene.
The fight
is
scene is
nuts.
cool. Her behind the wheel of the vehicle laughing, like she looks like she's like a really like sadistic kind of person. Gabriel, I think, is a good like kind of ominous villain where he's clearly the messenger for this rogue AI, but he pulls it off in such a way that's believable that he would be a good pairing for Tom Cruise to be battling with a spy of that level.
Yeah, I think that the cast is really good, and I think that you've seen since Ghost Protocol. I mean, like I said, the movies have gotten better and better and better in my opinion. But I feel like when Ghost Protocol happened, that was when McQuagmire or whatever his name is.
Yeah, that guy stepped in.
He steps in, and all of a sudden it's like, all right, we got a master chef in the kitchen that knows what to do with these ingredients. Let's rock and roll, and everything is special. Those movies feel like they stand alone. I know that he's done Top Gun Maverick. He seems to be the guy that
Edge of Tomorrow.
Tom Cruise trusts the most, and that they're able to work really well and get the best out of each other. But ever since then, like the cast feels right, the writing feels right. What's cool is like in the second Mission Impossible, there are a lot of stunts that are done. They're like, wow, I can't believe they did that, but it's more like it is a spectacle in itself. Whereas here, it's like these are actually story driven.
Yeah.
And the first criteria when we're looking at movies is the story. Does the story matter? And when we see in Mission Impossible 2, Tom Cruise like melee jump head on to another guy, I'm like, that seems stupid. Why not just
drop kick in?
Why not just hit him with the bike?
Yeah.
Why do you jump off?
What she does in this movie,
like,
it's awesome.
Like there's way more opportunities to like make story matter. Like if you're a good assassin or a spy, like you would not make these decisions. Here it's like this guy has nothing else to do but do the impossible.
Yeah.
And so it feels like, okay, this is Mission Impossible. How are you going to get on this train? You're going to get it. And
Jump
the
off
fact,
a mountain.
the fact that he jumps off a freaking mountain, and like we see it. We see his face ripple. It's like, I got to get away from this cliff. That is awesome.
You see kind of like a little bit of a look of fear in his eyes about to do the ride, and you can see tons of behind the scenes stuff because he actually did it. But it is just kind of I like that they in this movie they go more from like Haley Atwell's perspective sometimes whenever he's like doing this crazy stuff, and you just kind of see it in the peripheral of almost like that feeling of like what it would be like to see Ethan Hunt do like some of these, like when he crashes into the train later on, like so unexpectedly, because we've seen him do it throughout the franchise. So just kind of getting that new angle is just, it's so much fun. They do such a good job with like bringing in these side characters and making you kind of fall in love with them. The score is awesome again. You're kind of brought right back into it. The driving scenes, the shooting scenes, everything is great. How did you feel about the them killing Rebecca Ferguson.
I know people didn't like it. I'm cool with it. I do think it's a little bit weird that like they brought her back specifically for that. But in order for us to care more, the stakes have to get more and more real. I personally am still really interested in like what happened to Julia. Like I know that they've kind of put that storyline to rest a little bit with Fallout and her kind of going off.
Got a new husband.
With her new husband. That kind of gives us some sort of closure. But I just think that she as an actress and that like being your first love, that feels like a thread that can come back. I hope that they do something with that. That'd be really cool. But it also is really heartbreaking story-wise, again, because you think about the first movie. The opening conflict of that first movie is all these people on Ethan Hunt's team. This is his like first team that he's a part of, dying on a bridge.
Literally all of them. Like
they all die, and he's either on the bridge when they die or looking at them on the bridge, and he couldn't save them. And I think this movie drives home a lot that the most important thing to Ethan Hunt is his team. His friends are the most important thing. Their lives are more important than him. That's why he does the impossible, is to save them. And to know that he was manipulated and couldn't save her, that's got to hurt. We were with him when he said, "You're dead. Don't come back. Stay dead."
Yeah.
And she came back for him, and he couldn't save her. And I think that while there's some people that didn't like it, I feel like you've got to raise the stakes. If you kill Haley Atwell in this first movie, it makes
like,
any new character, any new character that gets shown up, like we're just expecting them to be killed. So,
and her and Tom Cruise have such a palpable chemistry.
I think Haley Atwell is phenomenal in the movie.
They work well together.
Again, I'm not meaning to pick on Mission Impossible 2 because that seems like I didn't like it. I think they're all really good, but in that movie, the female protagonist is like the cat burglar. She's the grifter. She can steal and pickpocket so many things. She is known in the underworld of crime as this person. She can do this, but we don't really see it all that much. And when she gets in this stressful situation, she can't do it. She's like Whereas like Haley Atwell's character Grace feels very comfortable doing this. You can tell in lots of places, like even like the shock and awe is almost like performed to stay in character of Ethan Hunt. Like she steals that paperclip from the Italian embassy, and she holds on to it the entire time until she's safe and away from danger, and that's when she picks the lock and handcuffs Ethan Hunt to the car. Like she clearly knows what's going on. And then when the stakes get real, when she sees people die, and Ilsa is killed trying to defend her and protect her, that there's that great line from Luther of, "No, she didn't die for you. You're alive because of her."
Yeah.
Like I thought that was a really cool line, kind of one of those like moments. I could see that being used somewhere else, but now Grace is in it, and she's part of the team. And we get to see her go through her own Mission Impossible. So I'm not trying to say that there's like a proverbial handing off, but like
it doesn't feel like they're like, oh, this is going to be a revamp of the series. No,
but she joined the team, and I think that it felt real. The whole sequence from when we get on the train is just every moment on the train is incredible. And again, that goes back to the first movie when they're on a train. They weren't able to do those things practically because it wasn't safe and there was regulations then.
Yeah.
But now that
they let Tom Cruise do whatever he wants to do.
It's like
Tom, you want to train?
Tom Cruise's world. We're just living in it.
Yeah. I think the set piece that stands out the most to me is that the train when it's falling at the end. The way that it looks, it's like you've been through the cars, so you know that they have to go through all these cars, and then when you're seeing them again, you're like, oh, I remember this car they were in. And then it's like, how are they going to navigate through this obstacle?
Lastly, we talked about Christopher Nolan, and you mentioned Inception. I thought that scene when they're like in the hotel hallway falling around, or the way they like use gravity to flip things in on itself. This kind of reminded me of that. And I'll say this: we talked about like what was your immediate reaction. I knew this is a part one of a 2-part movie. And the only thing that I knew going into this movie was that Tom Cruise drove a motorcycle off a cliff of a mountain. I'm sorry, and that he fought so hard for this movie to not end in a cliffhanger. So like, they get Ilsa dies, and then they start to talk about the plan, and the way the music is pumping, I'm like, oh, okay,
I thought it was gonna be the end.
This is the end of the movie, and then they show like a little bit of like imaginative process of what the plan could look like in Ethan's head, and then it comes back to them. I'm like, okay, now it's the end. And then I'm like, okay, when is it gonna end? 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 And then when they finally get, I'm like, okay, they are gonna show us this. I leaned over to Nick and I was like, I thought they were gonna end the movie.
Yeah,
I thought that was gonna be the end of the movie.
No.
So like, it just kept giving and giving and giving. And so for me to have been thinking it's gonna end, and then I got everything that was on the train, I was just like,
that was bonus.
It was like I was so happy.
That reminds me, that's how I felt with The Dark Knight. Like in the hospital, I'm like, oh, this is about to end. This is about to end. And it's like, oh, no, there's like 45 minutes left. It's not quite that long at that point. But still, it's like you get that like, oh, I don't really want this to end. Like, this kind of stinks. And like you get that payoff. And they don't leave it on like a big cliffhanger. It stands alone as like an isolated movie. Well, but there is things that are going to have to be done in the next one. I'm
sitting there thinking to myself, literally as he's going up the mountain and Benji's giving him all the advice, I'm like, well, the only thing I knew is like I saw that Tom Cruise really didn't want it to end on a cliffhanger, but I didn't read the article, so I don't know if it did end on a cliffhanger. And I was like, I swear to God, if he flies off this cliff and the movie just fades to black, I'm gonna be pissed, because the only two things I knew about this movie were that he drove this motorcycle off the mountain, and he didn't want it to end on a cliffhanger, and it ended there. I didn't even get to see the whole
proverbial
stunt.
And literal cliffhanger.
So I'm glad that they did that. Him flying off a cliff is insane.
Yeah.
It is insane.
Everything he does is insane.
And like seeing his face, like I felt like, whoo, like.
But it's just like the G-forces in Top Gun, where it's like you feel like you're flying through the air with him haphazardly, just throwing caution to the wind, doing what it takes to make a great movie, and it pays off. It was a pretty successful movie, not quite to the level that he had hoped for with the budget and marketing. I think it's it unfortunately got sandwiched right before we had two like culturally and phenomenally and globally recognized movies. But it's not going to stop them from making the next part.
It's going to make plenty of money, and it's actually continued to do like decent average showings. I think part of it is just losing those premium showings to Oppenheimer. Yeah. I think like not being able to get in those IMAX showings. This is a movie that, like, go see this in theaters. If you're watching this and you have showings, go see it. I promise you, you will enjoy it, even if you haven't seen all the other Mission Impossibles. It is such a spectacle of cinema that should be seen in a theater.
Yep.
And I want to give some flowers to somebody else, Vanessa Kirby.
Oh yeah.
I think that she is like really underutilized in the last film. And I like that they were able to bring her back in the same capacity, again, giving us lineages to previous films, but also to the first film. But the way they're able to like have her play herself on the train, but then also play Grace doing an impression of her, like that's so good. Like, I found myself not even thinking of that as Vanessa Kirby acting, even though it obviously is. Like the practical effects that they use, the fact that like Grace has brown eyes, she has these very striking blue eyes. I was like, you know what? I'm ready to see her in other things. I've mentioned to you, I'm hoping that she gets tapped as the Sue Storm.
Another Marvel reference, MCU reference.
Yeah, it's not a Minivan Movie Club without an MCU talk. I think that she is right on the precipice of like being something really big, and she's capable of leading them.
And she's been in a lot of action movies, so we know she can kind of hold her own with physical side of these performances. So yeah,
I think it's good. I'm curious to you, like, as you start to think about like the next movie, and we're not one to do like plot recapping, but where do you think the next movie is going, and how are they going to one up this movie?
Well, if this one had so many parallels to the first one, the next one's going to have a lot of parallels to 2. Tom Cruise is growing his hair back out. We're going to get a lot of that John Woo slow-mo gunfight. No, I think I'm just completely open. I know that the movie ends with the ship at the bottom of the ocean. There's got to be a lot more than him diving down to an empty submarine. I'm sure that they're going to give us something awesome, and I just look forward to it because, like you said, with the director and Tom, they clearly have the formula worked out.
Yeah, they do.
It's going to be a fun movie. It's going to be a movie I'm going to see in theaters. Just sign me up, baby. Just let me know when it's dropping.
Here's my hypothesis, is that he has to dive down deep, right? And the only way to make that dive bigger is he's got to make it from space.
Yeah, okay.
He's going to dive from space.
He's like, the only way I can penetrate the ice is if I jump from outer space.
No. I do think that they're going to find a way to go to space because that's the one frontier they haven't done. And they did reference a lot of, like, old Cold War era satellites. So maybe the only way that because Luther said he's got to go isolate himself.
Yeah.
He's going to come back. He's going to be like, hey, man, we got to get control of this satellite for just us. So Ethan's going to find a way to go to space, and that would be crazy.
And then to get back, he's going to have to dive down.
The reason it's going to be crazy is because when you watch it in theaters,
it's going to be
Tom Cruise in space. Like, just some actor that is like, hey, I want to go to space, so I'm going to do that. It's not, and he's going to be working on an act. Like, he's going to work with Elon Musk or NASA and be like, hey, can I go grab a satellite and just, like, swing around on it like it's CrossFit games, and
he's gonna do
dive down.
Just like Mission Impossible 2. He's gonna have his arms spread out like he's on the cliff, but he's holding on to 2 satellites.
Dude, whatever it is, I'm excited. I love Ving Rhames.
Oh, he's so awesome.
I'm
Simon
glad
Pegg.
they killed Ilsa, not Luther. Like if Luther would have gone, I'd have been like, now we riot.
Well, they almost kill him in Fallout. They
Yeah.
like shoot him, and I'm like, don't kill him.
Not Luther.
Not Luther.
He's like the emotional heart.
Yeah,
Like, his lines feels like you're talking with your dad, your grandpa. So that would be really, really hurtful. But I think that for me, this feels like it's going to be bigger and badder in every which way. I'm curious. Were there anything about the movie that like didn't work for you?
Not really. I mean,
Really?
I liked everything about this movie. This is the fun that I look to have when I go see a movie is exactly what this movie gives me.
I mean, it's gotten a lot of really good praise. The Rotten Tomato score as well. I know that the box office hasn't been as supportive as they would have liked to, and that's part of just where it's in the film. What do you feel about the ranking for this film? How did you rank it?
I think that this is a 9 out of 10. I think.
Okay.
I think acting, everything's kind of there for me. Everything I need, the whole formula, the over-the-topness, directorial vision, everything is right there. It's not a perfect movie. I'm not saying that, but like if you have some qualms, I can understand it. But this is rewatchable. This is high category, high praise for this film.
It's not very fun when we don't disagree. Because I feel like conflict is interesting, but we're not this isn't a fake show. We do our rankings appropriately, and then we agree with them or disagree with them. I also rank this a 9. I think this is like a perfect. If you were asking me to rank Mission Impossible movies, this is a 10 out of 10 for Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
This is exactly what they wanted to do. They raised the stakes. They made it more interesting. It's a visually beautiful movie. It's shot with great cinematography, the lighting, the music, the acting. Everything about it is really strong. When I go to the movies, like, this is the movie I want to see. I want to see something that is crazier than anything I've ever seen. And I guess my like closing thought on this movie is I really loved Top Gun Maverick. It was a movie that hit me emotionally in a way I didn't expect. This movie's really surprised me. And we talked like I'm not really a Tom Cruise fan. I wouldn't think of myself as that.
No.
But now that I'm starting to look at like the Mission Impossible movies and like the body of work, especially as of late, like he's a special actor.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about him as a person, like the personal issues aside, but there is something about the legacy that Tom Cruise is going to leave, and there are lots of channels and podcasters that have called him like the last great action superstar. It's hard to disagree with him. I would almost argue like he's not the last. He is like the first of his kind.
Yeah.
He's the only one that's ever done the things that he's doing.
I think you put him up there. If he's making a movie, there's a good chance that I want to see it.
Yeah.
Now, as far as like press release and all that stuff, that's a little different what he's doing.
Side note,
outside the studio.
I love how lately at the beginning of his movies,
Oh,
there is
yeah.
him saying like, "Hey guys, it's me, Tom Cruise. Thank you for coming to see the movies in the theaters where they're meant to be seen." Because every time it feels like he's saying like, "Hey Brett,
It's very
welcome
sincere.
back. I'm really happy that you're here, Brett. I love you, Brett."
I looked over at Brett when he said that to us in the theater, and Brett had one tear roll down his cheek.
I cried before the movie started.
He was like, "I love you, Tom."
And it's weird because like I do feel this weird ambivalence for him as a person with like all the Scientology stuff, but I also it's hard to hate somebody that is just so determined to be something great and then they do it. Like there is something about determination
Yep.
and discipline that is so attractive that you just can't help but be in awe of like, this guy just drove a freaking motorcycle
Now you
off
know
a cliff.
how the women felt when they met Oppenheimer.
Oh my gosh. Now you know what it's like, how my wife felt when she felt me.
That's
she
true.
met me.
That's how
she
Ken.
was like,
that's
she
how
was
Ken
like,
feels when he sees Barbie.
Yep. It's
You're
true.
there. But how you feel when you see Tom talking to you, thanking you for
You're
going
like,
to see the movie.
Thank you. It's a great movie. I can't wait for the part 2. It just makes me excited, and I think it makes me excited about like it's been such a fun summer of movies
Yep.
where we've just seen the last 3 movies that we've seen might be the best movies we've seen all summer in Barbie, Oppenheimer, and now Dead Reckoning. Next week we get to talk about another awesome movie that's coming out and go down nostalgia lane for you
Yep.
in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mayhem. Are you excited about that one?
Oh yeah, we're a Turtle House. I mean, my son loves them. I love them. Grew up loving them. You can't go wrong with the Turtles in my mind.
So that's what we're going to be talking about next week. As we've talked about time and time again, don't forget the movie on the mini promotion that we're doing. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get a chance at that $25 gift card to Fandango. Who knows? Wink, wink. There may be more, but that's only accessible to the first 100 subscribers of our YouTube channel. If there's another movie you want us to talk about, let us know. But for the Minivan Movie Club, I'm Brett, he's Nick, and we're signing off.
Peace.